Welcome to the Lyster Health Talks Podcast, hosted by Lieutenant Colonel Garrett Holt, the commander of Lyster Army Health Clinic and the Health Services Director at Fort Novacell. Each month, listen in as the team focuses their discussion on relevant, relatable content that empowers your health and the readiness of the force. In today's show, Lieutenant Colonel Holt and the team talk back-to-school tips for a healthy and happy school year.
Well, hello, Fort Novacell. This is Lieutenant Colonel Garrett Holt. Welcome you back to the Lyster Health Talks Podcast. Again, I'm the commander of Lyster Army Health Clinic, but in this capacity, I'm the host of the show and really excited to have you back listening with us. Hopefully, you've gotten a lot of value out of the several episodes that we've done to date. And if you haven't listened to them, I encourage you to go back. We try and keep the content not just timely, but it's relevant to you throughout the rest of the year. So I encourage you to go back and listen to it. Had some great feedback in that regard. But today, I can't believe it. We are just getting back into the mindset of getting back to school. And it is hard to believe. You know, there's some school districts I understand across the nation that are already in school, which is mind-boggling to me. But you know, down here in Lower Alabama, we've got to start getting ready for it and getting prepared for it. I know that's probably a very exciting thing for many of our parents, and maybe not so exciting for some of the kiddos. But you know what? It's time, and before we know it, we'll be back into the swing of things. So my guest today, pretty excited about having both of them. Over here to my right is Lieutenant Colonel Regina Thorp. She's the Deputy Commander for Nursing and Patient Services. Just arrived to us just about a month ago. She is a nurse practitioner by trade, both in family practice and as women's health. So we're excited to have you on the show. And over to my left is our registered dietitian, Miss Osteen. So thank you both for being on the show with us today.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's just dig right in to our episode. Again, getting back into school, you know, some things to think about. We try and bring some different material that maybe our listeners don't think about every time, depending on what the episode is. But today, I just want to start passing it over to Lieutenant Colonel Thorp to kind of get us started on any ideas and any tips that she might have for getting us back into school.
Oh, fantastic. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. This is, a dream come true for being on a podcast. So thanks for helping
Well, you
me
are
out.
welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Just, from the health perspective, I think it's important for the parents to start looking at our social medias. We do have some great opportunities coming up to support our students. Just getting that annual checkup for your children, if they haven't done that already. It's a little bit easier during the summer when they don't have school, and get that checkup and look at the vaccinations. We have some great vaccination nurses that can look and make sure that they're just up to date on their vaccinations and get ready for the upcoming year.
It's hard to believe that we have to start thinking about that, but those school physicals and sport physicals, it's sometimes gets to crunch time and you're like, oh my gosh, we got to hurry up and get it in. So What I hear you say is proper planning means success. So
exactly.
That's
exactly.
Good.
So,
that's good. No, thanks for that. Really appreciate it. Well, Miss Osteen, what kind of things do you have for us today for getting back into school?
Well, tying into the health overall for our students, kindergarten all the way through college, we do want to make sure that we're feeding them in a healthy way. So as much as possible, trying to provide balanced meals and snacks for them. And as we're preparing for school to begin, thinking about what we're going to be doing for sending our kids off. So sending them to school with a healthy breakfast in the morning. So making sure that they're ready to learn and concentrate with what the teachers and professors are going to be presenting to them. And then looking to see what are we going to be doing for their lunches, for their snacks while they're at school all day long. So providing good nutritious foods for them all day long as well. So looking to see what our options are, focusing also on food safety so that we're not putting them at risk for having things that need to be refrigerated that are not. So think about how long things are going to be sitting throughout the day. So overall, we just want to be healthy and give our kids the best options possible.
Yeah, that's great. There's so many cool little ideas that you see online for different types of little snacks and we always try and stay on the outskirts. I think that's what somebody told me one time. Stay on the outskirts. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. The less processed foods are going to be on the outside of the store when you're there shopping. So try to look for some of those things, fresh fruits and vegetables. Looking more at your whole grain products, your meats that are not as processed as well. So make sure that we're including all of those, and don't forget about your dairy. But again, on any of those things that need to be refrigerated, make sure that we are looking at them and keeping them as cold as possible.
I'm going to foot stomp. Hopefully we have some college student listeners or maybe parents of college student listeners out there, any tips for them as they go into, I know I'm blushing at the thought of telling you what I ate in my freshman and sophomore year, which was not probably in line with anything that I want to admit to here, but any tips for folks returning back to college?
Well, there are great dining facilities at any school that kids are going to go to. So if you're going to get a meal plan, so there will be a magnitude of choices for them there. The freshman 15 is something that's very, very common. So teaching them all the way through school to eat healthy is already important so that when they get there, they're not splurging on all the options that they may have access to, sometimes 24 hours a day. So that's a key with that. But in other cases, people have their own apartments. So the students are not actually eating in the dining facilities, and they have to learn how to budget their money and go grocery shopping and learn how to cook. So making sure that you're preparing them as a parent before they go off to school, so that we're not actually just sending them with having no clue whatsoever how to even prepare foods or how to use their money. One of the things that my younger son did is he spent all of his shopping money for the entire month within the first week with ordering food out instead of actually going to actually get food. So that was something that he had to learn very, very quickly, that he couldn't just blow all his money in that way. So making sure that we're having those conversations with our students, that's going to be an important thing for us as well as for them.
Lieutenant Colonel Thorp, any thoughts on nutrition maybe? Was there tips or tricks that you use for your kiddos or something going back to school?
Yeah, it's always a difficult thing with my twins, trying to get them. But I always try to have a fruit or vegetable with every meal. And then I try and make it fun, try and make it a game, or something as simple as having a banana is one thing, but then slicing it up for some odd reason, they'll eat sliced bananas, but not the whole bananas. So just making it fun for them, where it doesn't seem like they're being forced to eat their fruits and vegetables, but just something that they can continue to do and do with every meal. Yeah,
it's interesting. It's watch what kiddos are eating these days versus what I ate. I'm like, wow, we've really gone a long way, and it's kind of fun too. It's my kiddo, I'm happy to say, enjoys her vegetables most of the time, but it does prefer to. It's fun to have that conversation of not do you like vegetables, but what's your favorite vegetable to eat, and she gets to be a part of that actual shopping experience as well, and going to see the produce aisle versus sometimes we rush past the chip aisle. Not all the time, but sometimes we do. So, well, that's great. No, thank you both. I as we're kind of wrapping up our time, I also want to give you guys each a moment to give any other parting thoughts on back to school and staying safe. And I'll turn over to Lieutenant Colonel Thorp on any last comments that she might have.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I think with the children, when they're back at school, they're going to be around their friends. They're going to be touching a lot more surfaces, and there's definitely a higher risk of viruses being passed around. So I think the parents just can kind of keep in mind that we always have the nurse advice line. Nurse advice line is a great resource that parents can call and say, hey, should my child be evaluated by a provider, or are they okay to go to school? And so that's super helpful.
A lesson that we learned coming out of, you remember the era of COVID-19, was just kind of keeping in mind how we get infections and how we get illnesses, anything upper respiratory. And a lot of those practices, we had to really adhere to strictly. And to be able to adopt that inside of our day-to-day, things like hand washing or, covering your mouth, but not necessarily with your hands, using the crook of your elbow, things of that nature. Simple things that we can do and learn and teach our kiddos of good practices that really go a long way. Ms. Osteen, what else do you have for us as a parting word?
Well, with our younger students, making sure that parents realize that they do need to be eating more often. So smaller amounts, having them available for them during school as well as after school. So they typically is going to be a snack time while they're at school. So making sure we're preparing for that. And then for all of our students, hydration, very, very important, especially with the heat here in Lower Alabama. So taking a look at that, and in many cases, teachers let them actually have a water bottle in the classroom with them that they can refill throughout the day. So that's something that's also going to be really important to make sure that we are paying attention with our students.
Yeah, that's a great point. I love those water bottles now that are out there that have like the little labels of, you're almost there, or, it's all this little encouragement, and my daughter gets a kick out of that and lets me know what label she got to that day. And
got to make it fun.
Right? That's super. Well, I want to thank you both for joining us today. It's been great to have you on the show. It's just always encouraging. And I think one other thing I'd like our listeners to think about is, something that me and my wife like to think of is, every chapter, every grade is different. There's something new for your kids that they're going to be exposed to, be it particularly in the military environment, might be new friends, might be new teachers, just a new way of operating. It's just not going to be like it was last year. And so being emotionally available for your kiddos is an important thing, and really having those, it's as old-fashioned as it sounds, sit down and have a meal, right? Sit down and have a meal and make it a routine, and put the phones away. That's a hard thing for me to do, but put phones and screens away, but just have a discussion and making sure that they have definitely one safe place to be, emotionally at least. Well, I want to thank all of our listeners for listening in today. Again, if you we publish this on many platforms, not only DVids, but you of course find it on YouTube. We also have it on Spotify and Apple. So wherever you get your podcast there, definitely encourage you to like us and follow us in that regard. And this is Lieutenant Colonel Garrett Holt signing off and reminding you that your healthiest chapter is ahead and the only way is forward.
The Lyster Health Talks podcast is produced by the Lyster Army Health Clinic's Public Affairs Office at Fort Novosel. Join us in September for another informative episode of Lyster Health Talks. Stay healthy, Fort Novosel.